Good morning, everyone. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to another audiobook session of Almost There, a Twisted Tale novel, here on the Disney Magic Zach channel. I am, of course, Zach. I'm your host for this. And today, we're going to be reading chapter 5. So strap in, get yourself a drink, get yourself a nice little something, relax, and let's read chapter 5. Let's have a look. Let's see what happens. And of course, if you have missed any previous episodes, I will leave this, the playlist in the description down below for you, so you can go and check it out before you carry on with this one. Chapter 5. Dr Facilier positioned himself against the raw iron lamppost, hunching his back so the dusty cloak he donned wouldn't slip from his shoulders. Of all the disguises in his repertoire, this was by far his least favourite. But blending in with the riffraff who loitered about the French Quarter was paramount to keeping his identity concealed. He forced a wrench cough from deep in his lungs, the kind that would send anyone who came near scurrying to the side of the street. He was in no mood for company. Not that he had to worry about that today. Most of the people hustling their way through the narrow streets and alleyways didn't seem to notice him. They were too busy complaining about the peculiar haze blanketing New Orleans. Facilier didn't mind it one bit. The gazy cloud was a perfect distraction, providing extra cover for those deeds he'd rather keep hidden from the public eye. Unlike the rest of the folks whining about this fog, Facilier chose to use it to his advantage, and here came his opportunity to do just that. He spotted his mark when he was still several yards away. The unsuspecting fool strode along the pavement with a trumpet tucked underneath his arm and a derby hat pulled low over his forehead. He ambled right past Facilier, whistling to himself as if he didn't have a care in the world, because he didn't. Prince Naveen of Maldonia never had to worry about anything. He'd been born into the kind of wealth most people couldn't fathom. Even after his parents had cut him off, he never faced any real hardships. His looks, charm and connections were aces in his pocket, qualities he could count on to get him out of anything. Facilier fought to keep the disgust from showing on his face as he set off to follow the young man. He hung back, maintaining a respectable distance between himself and the prince while travelling along St. Anne's Street. He waited until Naveen reached the crowded street corner before sidling up alongside him. Naveen paused while a horse-drawn carriage clumped by, and Facilier made his move. Oh, excuse me, he said, fumbling into the prince. Whoa, you okay there? Naveen asked, pretending to be a drunken deep in his cups. Facilier slurred a mumble. Thank you, as he looped his arm around Naveen's shoulders. With sleight of hand, he pricked him at the base of his neck and collected several drops of blood, using a small bottle that he'd held hidden in his palm. Naveen stiffened, but he wasn't in a position to let go, lest he drop the poor drunk man he'd been kind enough to help. Steady there, my friend, Naveen said. He looked to a stately gentleman standing next to him, with his free hand motioned as if he were drinking. It's a bit early in the day, eh? The other man turned his nose up at them both, then proceeded to cross the street. You okay? Naveen asked as he righted Facilier. Yes, thank you, Facilier slurred. You take it easy. Naveen tipped his hat to Facilier and continued on his way. Facilier smiled as he watched Naveen scratch at the place where he'd pricked his skin. He probably thought it was a mosquito. He pocketed the small vessel he'd used to collect the prince's blood and quickly made it back to his residence deep in the French Quarter. The front room served as the shop front for Dr Facilier's emporium, but it was in the back where the real magic happened. Unfortunately, when it came to his magic, real was relative. It was mostly sleight of hand, convincing illusions, simmering brews, and of course, the borrowed powers. Facilier removed the dusty cloak and tossed it aside on his way to the nondescript chest at the rear of the room. He lifted the lid from the chest and shielded his eyes from the streams of blinding light that burst forth and ricocheted off the walls. Carefully he retrieved the bowl from the bowels of the chest. Its smooth opal exterior made it cold to the touch, but the contents bubbled like the brew in a witch's cauldron. He carried it to a nearby table and added the drops of blood he'd just conversated from the vein to the bowl. Using the tip of his cane, he swirled around the concoction that he had been fermenting for the better part of a year. and intone the initial verses of the spell he'd cast on Prince Naveen with the help of his friends on the other side. Bitterness festered on Facilier's tongue, its intensity growing with every word that poured forth from him. His reliance on his friends was a source of constant fury, but he had no other choice. Facilier closed his eyes tight around the image of his mother, as his mind brought him back to those days when he would sit on a knee, observing her service to the people of their community. She had been a healer, practicing sacred rituals passed down from her mother and her mother's mother and beyond, but none of those rituals had been enough to heal her. No words, no dancing, no burning of arms had been enough to keep her here. The day his mother's soul passed on was a day he vowed to get back at this cruel world. It was what it deserved for ridding itself of her. He shunned his mother's religion, refusing to learn its practices, now knowing once and for all it could do nothing for him. What was the point? None of it had saved her. So to achieve the power and fortune he coveted, he had turned his friends from the other side. And now the price of doing business with them continued to increase. Facilier unhooked a wooden spoon from the wall and scooped up some of the concoction. Careful not even to spill a drop, he cupped his hand underneath the spoon and carried it to the brass plate that held the gold crest of Maldonia that had once hung around Naveen's neck. Pilfering the crest was about the only thing that useless Lawrence had done right after their misguided scheme backfired, and Facilier had decided he was done using the amulet. Facilier slowly drizzled the piping hot liquid over the crest as he murmured the final lines of the spell. The spell didn't give him total control over Naveen's mind. The price for that particular trick had been much too high. His friend had offered the next best thing. As long as Facilier performed the ritual of covering something Naveen still held near and dear to his heart, Naveen's own blood, he would be susceptible to Facilier's wishes. Similar to the potion he supplied Tiana, though this was tailored specifically to the prince and his memories. There was just one caveat. The spell became less potent with each day that passed. Lately all it seemed to be doing was making sure he forgot about the incidents of last Mardi Gras. Timing was important in these deals, and Facilier was up against the clock. The dunder-headed prince and LeBeau's daughter were always together, yet no official wedding announcement had made it to the newspapers. Their dilly-dallying was costing Facilier precious time. The longer he had to wait to get his hands on LeBeau's fortune, the longer he had to remain beholden to his friends on the other side. He considered discarding the spell he cast on Naveen after Tiana opened the little supper club in Treme, especially once LeBeau became a frequent visitor. The man loved to indulge in Tiana's cooking. Facilier figured it would be only a matter of time before he could get the wealthy sugar baron under his control. Except LeBeau seemed immune. Facilier didn't doubt that Tiana was using the potion as promised. He swindled enough of her customers as they left the supper club to know that she dutifully added it to her gumbo exactly as he directed. But when it came to LeBeau and the rich cronies who often accompanied him to the restaurant, the magical concoction seemed to have no effect. Facilier tightened his fist around the handle of the wooden spoon to the point of cracking it. He had to get to the bottom of this. He had to get to LeBeau. He had so many cards built into houses. One wrong move and poof, it would all fall down. Mardi Gras was less than a week away, which meant the Shadows would be expecting their payment for that deal he'd made with them almost 1 year ago. If Facilier had any chance of getting to LeBeau through Tiana's gumbo, it had to be soon. But once the sun dipped below the horizon on Mardi Gras night, Tiana would no longer be around to add his potion to her gumbo. She just didn't know it yet.